Hello folks, it's Webby. Welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be giving you my thoughts and opinions on the fully electric Hyundai Ioniq 5. A car that I've actually been looking forward to driving all year, so it's nice that I've eventually managed to get my hands on it. I've been spending a week with this car to get a full feel of what it's like to live with an electric car, the range, the charging, the anxiety of am I going to get there with enough charge and get back and that type of stuff. But also learning a bit about the technology about the car and the different features that you find on an electric vehicle these days. So come and join me for this video as I walk you around the car, take you for a bit of a tour, but then we'll also go for a drive and find out what it's like on the road. So let's get started and see what the Ioniq 5 is all about. So here in Australia, there's actually only one specification of the Ioniq 5, so everything you see here is actually standard. In terms of the powertrain, there's actually two options that you can choose from. There's a slightly cheaper rear-wheel drive model, which is $71,990 plus on roads. That gives you 160 kilowatts and 350 newton meters and is rear-wheel drive only. You can also plump for the all-wheel drive version, which is the one I've been testing this week. That gives you 225 kilowatts and 605 newton meters of torque, so that's a fairly big jump over the rear-wheel drive model. For the privilege of that, you'll pay an extra $4,000, so $75,990 plus on road costs. But it is quite nice to have the extra power and also the all-wheel drive. So let's start by having a look around the outside of the Ioniq 5. I'll show you some of the styling cues and the features on the outside, and then we'll move to the interior of the car, where I can explain some of the technology to you as well. So starting at the front of the car, you can see it's got quite angular styling. It's very recognisable when you see one on the road. Not that you'll probably see very many, because all 240 cars for this year have already sold out. And if you want to buy one, well, you have to order it straight through the Hyundai website, and it'll be sometime in 2022 before your car turns up. Anyway, styling wise, we've got nice daytime running lights at the front with obviously LED headlights. We've got nice features like front parking sensors. We've also got a front camera as well. This massive section along here, which looks silver, is actually a light bar. So at night time, it actually looks really, really impressive. Then we've also got a couple of flaps at the very bottom of the front bumper, which open up to let air onto the radiator, which is just behind the front grille, and that helps keep the electric motor and also the batteries a little bit cooler. Now coming to the side of the car, we start off with the 20-inch alloy wheels, which are standard. They're wrapped in specially designed Michelin Pilot Sport tyres, and these are designed specifically for electric vehicles. The wheel arches have got these little sort of flicks going all the way round, which look a little bit like a camera shutter, but it's designed to sort of maximise the airflow down the side of the car to make it sort of more aerodynamic. The rest of the styling is actually quite interesting as well. You've got this crease which starts sort of almost at the top of the front door, but runs all the way down to virtually the bottom of the back door, so it makes for quite a distinctive shape at the side of the car. You've then also got this sort of plastic cladding at the bottom as well. Again, another sort of nice design feature of the car, and makes it very recognisable to any other car on the road. We've then also got nice features as well, like when you unlock the car, the door handles pop out as well, and then you just literally pull that to open the door. When you look at the Ioniq 5 from the side, you can actually see how long it is. It's got the same wheelbase as the 8-seater Hyundai Palisade, and that's a much taller vehicle. So it actually makes the Ioniq 5 look longer because the roofline is actually a little bit lower. It's not an SUV, but then it's not quite as low as a sedan either. It's kind of somewhere in the middle, like a crossover SUV type of thing. I actually think it looks a little bit like the Audi Q8 in terms of its design, very sort of square and angular, but also sort of very muscular and good looking. In terms of rear lighting, again we've got LEDs at the back. We've got the standard lights here. Let me just show you. So you've got your standard LED lights here. Then you've also got this red strip which runs all the way from one side to the other. So again, very recognisable at night time when you're following one of these down the road. You've then also got the Ioniq 5 badging just there in the centre. Right, so let me show you the boot next. As you'd imagine, it's electrically operated. And when you open it up, you find yourself with 527 litres of storage capacity. The boot shape itself isn't too bad. It's fairly deep and wide, but the angle of the window does rob you of a bit of space sort of high up if you want to put some taller objects in the boot. You can lift up this little flap and you've got a bit of storage either side, because under that central section is the subwoofer of the Bose sound system that's in this car. Now when it comes to charging the Ioniq 5, the slowest method is actually using the standard cable that comes with the car, which you can plug into the plug socket in your garage. That'll take you somewhere between 30 and 33 hours, so if you're not in a rush, then that's absolutely fine. You can install a fast charger at home, and that will take you around 6 to 7 hours, so for most people that's probably the best method of keeping your car charged. If you're out and about in public, you can get one of these cables, and then this will plug into one of the public chargers you can find on ChargeFox or any other networks out here in Australia or wherever you're from in the world. That will give you a slightly faster charge than your standard one at home, but then you can also get what are called CCS Type 2, which is the fastest charging available. And if you can find a charging point fast enough, this car will actually charge from 10 to 80% in just 18 minutes. But I would imagine they're few and far between those charging points, because they can go up to 350 kilowatt. And certainly here in Australia, I don't suppose there's going to be many charging stations that will feature that type of charging sort of service. Now in this little case here, I've got actually a really interesting device. It plugs into the charging socket of the Ioniq 5, and on one end of it, you can actually plug in any household device. So it's got a standard plug socket on this end. So you could plug in a kettle, a microwave, your vacuum cleaner, any electrical device that you'd use at home, and the car will actually give power to it. So it's actually quite impressive and really handy. Now if you went camping on a campsite, for example, and there's no power available, or it would actually save you paying for power, you could just plug any bits and pieces into the car directly. Just obviously make sure you've got enough charge in your battery before you start doing that though, because yeah, it'd be a bit embarrassing if you're trying to charge a mobile phone but the actual car ran out of battery. So basically all you do with this is, once you've opened the little charging door on the side of the car, plug it into the side. This section here comes down, press your power button to turn it on, and then just under there you've got a standard plug socket, so you plug whatever you want into there. Dead easy. I did a couple of sort of experiments with this. I actually plugged in a kettle, made myself a cup of tea, and then I also wrapped the car in Christmas lights. So if you've seen my Instagram stories recently, you'll have seen me making a cup of tea, plus also the car completely lit up in Christmas tree lights, which was actually quite cool, to be fair. Now also with the charging sockets here as well, so this is your standard one here at the top, and then you can just pull that little cap off there at the bottom, which will give you the full CCS Type 2 fast charging options. Another nice feature we've got here as well, these 10 lights represent how much charge you've got in the battery, so obviously each light represents 10%. You've also then got a little button there that allows you to just close the flap on the outside. Now coming inside to the Ioniq 5, and it does feel a little bit sort of futuristic in here, but there is a good blend of being traditional like any other Hyundai. Once you jump in front of you is a 12.3-inch instrument cluster, fully digital, and it will show things like your speed, it will show how much charge you've got left, driving information, so it's not too dissimilar to any other car that you'll find in Hyundai or Kia range these days. Now when you come inside the Ioniq 5, it feels very different from any other Hyundai, and not just because it's an electric car. All the materials are really high quality, beautiful soft sort of fake leather, and it just feels really, really nicely put together. If you took the Hyundai badges off, you could be mistaken for thinking this is actually a German car. Such is the sort of the quality of the fitments, just the way it's put together. It feels really, really nice in here. In front of the driver there's a 12.3-inch digital display, and that will show you things like obviously your speedo, how much charge you've got left in the battery, your driving information, but then you can go in and set up different things like your trip computers and bits and pieces like that. There's another 12.3-inch display in the centre of the dashboard, as with any other car. Again, if you've been a Hyundai or a Kia recently, that's very recognisable. It's got the same sort of setup as like an i30 or a Tucson, but then you've obviously got some bits and pieces there that are exclusive to this because it's an electric vehicle. It doesn't feel too sort of space age in here as well. I think Hyundai have done a really good job of making it feel special, showing you that this is an electric car by sort of the way they've displayed everything and the big screens that they've put in here. But it's still nice to see sort of functional actual touch buttons down here on the display and knobs and that sort of thing, rather than like a Tesla when everything's on that big touch screen and you have to access the touch screen to do anything you want to do on the car. Whereas here at least we've still got buttons here for the climate control. There's buttons here that you can access your media, your sat nav or your maps. So it's nice that they've retained some sort of buttons like you would on a normal car without sort of putting everything onto a touchscreen, and I think that's a really neat idea. The steering wheel itself is lovely as well. You've got the usual buttons on here to operate your phone and your cruise control. So again, if you've been in a Hyundai recently, that'll be very, very familiar to you. Then you also got a button down here for the drive mode, so you can switch between eco, normal and sport. And if you put it in sport, boy does it go, it really hammers. We'll find it out when we get to the driving section of the video, but yeah, put your foot down and it will throw you back in your seat pretty lively. Now coming down to sort of the lower section of the car, and this is where it starts to get a little bit different from your average sedan. There's no sort of gear stick here or anything like that, because that's on a rotary controller on the right hand side of the steering column. That does take a little bit of getting used to, if I'm honest, but once you've been driving it for a couple of days, it actually becomes second nature. And then you find that it's actually quite nice to have all this space, you know, sort of down the centre of the car. So this section here, as you can see, you've got a couple of cup holders, and just behind that we've got a couple of USB ports. Down the bottom there's a wireless charging pad to put your phone, and then you've got this huge area where you can actually use for storage as well. So that's actually really, really nice. We've also got this lift up armrest as well with a bit more storage under here as well, and the whole thing can move backwards and forwards. So you've got a little handle at the back here which you just lift up and slide the whole thing back. So it just gives this nice feeling of sort of space in the front of the car, but obviously it restricts the legroom in the back a little bit. So what you can do there is just pull the handle, bring it forward again, passengers in the back get a little bit more legroom, and you've still got plenty of space in the front as well. Down right there in the front of the car there's another USB output there as well, and this is the one where you have to plug your phone in to use your Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. So it's not a wireless version of Apple CarPlay, so you do have to still plug your phone in. You do get a nice little cubby hole down there as well, and there's actually quite a lot of storage on this car, plus also another 12 volt plug socket for plugging in phone chargers and what have you as well, which is quite handy. The glove box is quite interesting. Instead of having a little door that drops down, it's actually a little bin that slides out. It's like one of those sort of you know, the drawers in your fridge or your freezer at home. So it's actually quite a neat way of doing things, and it means you can actually put more stuff in there, which is quite cool. When we look around the cabin, we've also got things like recycled materials just here on the door cards. The leather itself is actually what they call Sensico, so it's not real leather. The front seats are heated and air conditioned, which is nice. There's a couple of colour options, so you get this lighter sort of creamy colour, plus you can also get the traditional black as well. I actually quite like this. It makes the interior feel sort of nice and light and spacious, but obviously you realise that if you've got kids it's probably not the most practical option to go for. The seats are fully electric, and there's also an option that what you can do, this little pad down here, you can lift it up and tilt your seat back, so when you're charging your car at a charging point you can lay down and have a little sleep or just have a rest. So yeah, they've obviously thought about how people are going to use this car, which is quite nice. And on the driver's side we've got a couple of memory options as well. Comes in handy if you've got sort of one short, one tall person driving the car. The Ioniq 5 also comes with a full glass roof as well. So the flick of a switch there you can fully open it up to obviously let a lot more light into the car. The glass itself doesn't actually open, so it's literally just there to let light in, but it does make for a really nice experience when you're driving along. So coming into the back of the Ioniq 5, and it feels much more like a regular car back here. You've got a decent amount of legroom in the front. Your feet don't quite fit under the driver's seat, but that's too much of a problem because you can stretch your legs out fairly well. The air vents are over here on the side instead of being in the centre console. Then on the armrest over here, there's a button to operate the heated rear seats, which are on the two outer seats. There's a two-stage heating button, which is actually quite nice. We've got the little mood lighting LEDs on the door handle and also around the speaker grille like we've got in the front as well. And then we've also got these sun blinds as well, which on a hot day like today has actually been quite nice to have. Headroom is quite decent as well. The rear seats can adjust electrically backwards and forwards. So if you need to adjust your seat to create a bit more space in the boot, you can do. So that's quite a handy little feature to have as well. We then also got some more traditional features like your centre armrest here as well, a couple of cup holders there in the middle. So yeah, nothing sort of too out of the ordinary, fairly standard stuff. Down in the centre console we find a couple of USB charging points, and there's also a nice little sort of storage cubby hole in there as well as having a bit of storage down there in the doors. So here's another look at the interior just coming from the driver's side of the car. One thing to point out, you've got these fully adjustable electric seats here, including being able to raise that little sort of footrest there. So as I said earlier, when you're charging your car, you can actually just lay back and enjoy and have a little sleep. There you go. You can just lay your seat down like that, have a little nap while your car's charging. But as I said earlier, you can see how much attention to detail Hyundai have actually put into this car. The quality of the materials and the fit and the finish are just like a German sort of prestige sedan. It really is quite impressive in here. Now, as you can imagine, safety is fully catered for as well. We've got front and rear sensors, we've got front and rear cameras. We've also got adaptive cruise control, blind spot monitor, lane keeping aid. So the usual sort of standard stuff you find on a car these days. It doesn't go quite as far as having the self-driving capability that you'd find on a Tesla, but then here in Australia you can't really use that anyway because we don't have the infrastructure. Right, so let's take the Ioniq 5 for a drive, and there's no actual gear stick down here, so the gear stick or gear selector, whatever you want to call it, is actually on the steering column just to the right. So it's a little twist device. Twist it forward for drive and twist it backwards for reverse, so it's fairly self-explanatory. We've got an electronic parking brake, so again that will just deactivate as we pull away. So it's actually really nice and easy to get going. So let's twist it forward, stick into drive, and off we go. So just like any other electric car, the Ioniq 5 is eerily quiet as soon as you start driving. All you can hear is a little bit of tyre noise, a bit of road noise, and that's about it. You really are sort of well insulated inside the cabin. Where you can measure times, so 0 to 100, or you can do different sort of time scales, whatever you want to do basically. So I bought it with the intention of trying out 0 to 100 times on cars when I review them. So I just wanted to sort of add something a little bit different to my reviews. So it wasn't expensive, a couple of $100. So I thought, yeah, why not, let's give it a go. So at some stage, hopefully during today's drive, I'll be able to find a nice quiet piece of road to try that 0 to 100 time out. So driving along, and it is a very comfortable car to drive. The ride quality is really nice. As I said, it's very quiet inside the cabin. It's just a really nice place to be. As I was talking earlier about the fit and finish in here, it was very much like a German car. It's very premium feeling. It adds to the driving experience as much as just looking nice. It actually makes you feel like you're in a more expensive car. one other thing you do get when you're driving this car is a lot of people looking at you, or not me obviously looking at the car, because most people won't have seen one of these, may not have even heard about what this car is. So when you first sort of pull up to sort of like a set of traffic lights or something like that, you get people in the next car sitting next to you sort of having a look at your car thinking, you know, what the bloody hell's that next to me? So yeah, it's quite interesting to see people's reactions to this car. I went to a car event at the weekend, like a Cars and Coffee, and there's Porsche, McLaren there, that type of stuff. But this just got so much attention, almost more attention than the supercars, because I guess, not that you see supercars every day of the week, but you know, you go to a car show, you expect to see Porsche, Lamborghini, Ferrari, McLaren, that type of stuff. But you don't expect to go to a car show and see one of these. So I think a lot of people were very surprised, you know, to see this at a car show. So yeah, a lot of people come and had a look in it, sat in it, asked me lots of questions, which I was happy to answer, because you know, it's nice to sort of spread the word and, you know, let people sort of look at this car, because you know, most people never get a chance to see one, let alone, you know, driving one. Something with electric cars is you can sometimes feel the weight. So if they've been designed as like a normal car to start with, then it's been converted to be an electric car, you sometimes find the packaging isn't very good, so they've had to kind of do a bit of a workaround to try and get it to sort of work properly. Whereas with the Ioniq 5, it was built as an electric car from the ground up, so the way Hyundai have packaged the car means it feels like a normal car to drive. It doesn't feel overly heavy like some electric cars do. And although it hasn't had what Hyundai call an Australian tune, as in it hasn't been you know, tuned and set up for Australian roads, it still rides remarkably well, considering also it's got those 20-inch wheels. Because normally the bigger the wheel, you know, the more bumpy the ride and a bit uncomfortable it becomes. But I actually think the ride in this car is pretty decent. It's easy to read all the displays and dials in front of you, it's all very clear. The only downside I find is that this top of the steering wheel does intrude a little bit in the top of the display, obviously depending where you've got it sort of set up. But for sort of my driving position where I've got the steering wheel, it does cut off the corners of that screen in front of you, which is a little bit frustrating. But I guess it's something you sort of come to, you know, you learn to live with. It does feel nice and spacious in here, not having anything sort of really here, no big sort of centre console in the way. It definitely gives you like a feeling of being very, yeah, sort of airy and spacious and not claustrophobic. It's a nice driving experience. I do really enjoy it. Now, like all Hyundai models, the Ioniq 5 comes with a 5-year unlimited kilometre warranty. And then the battery itself has a separate warranty, so that's 8 years or 160,000 kilometres. So it's good to know that Hyundai put a decent warranty on the battery as well. I don't suppose many people are going to do 160,000 k's in 8 years in this car, but I guess you never know. In terms of servicing, there's still servicing to be done on this car, because you've got to still attend to things like obviously brakes and actually maintaining the electric motor as well. And the good thing they've done with that is actually it's a capped price servicing. So for the first 5 services, you'll pay a fixed price of $1,684. So it's actually not even that expensive to service either. It's no more expensive than any other Hyundai, to be honest. Putting your foot down is pretty darn addictive, I have to tell you. If you've ever driven any electric car, just that instant power, and it just sends you up the road, it just puts a big smile on your face. It's so addictive. But this car isn't just a one-trick pony. It's not just all about going fast on a straight line. It's almost like a luxury car as well. It feels so nice in here. As I keep saying, the quality of all the materials, the fit and finish it's just like a German car, and that's high praise for it. because as we know, German manufacturers are very fastidious, and you know, they make really great interiors on their cars. So to put this in the same sort of bracket, in the same level, is definite praise for this car. Now, I did manage to do a 0 to 100 time. I got my draggy out, as I mentioned earlier, so I'll drop that footage in for you now, just so you can see how did I get on in terms of matching the manufacturer's time of 5.3 seconds. So yeah, I'll roll that clip now for you. So there you go. It's interesting to see exactly how close I managed to get to the official time from Hyundai for the 0 to 100. Yeah, quite impressed with that, in fact. So the first use of the draggy actually came up really well. Let me know, is that something you'd like to see in future videos? Do you want me to continue testing 0 to 100, or maybe something different, because you can customize different settings for the draggy. So if you wanted to do, I don't know, 50 to 70 or 50 to 100, you know, joining a freeway or something like that. So you can do different settings on the draggy. So let me know if you want to see something different other than the 0 to 100. Put it in the comments below, let me know. As I mentioned earlier, this car is just under $76,000 plus on road costs, which actually isn't that much more than the much smaller Kona electric. So for a little bit more money, you could have this, which is much nicer inside. It's bigger, so it suits a family better, and it feels much more luxurious. Because it's designed ground up as an electric car, it handles and drives better as well. So yeah, for a little bit more money, I'd have this over the Kona electric every day of the week. Absolutely would, you know, it's an easy decision. Whether you would buy this over a Tesla Model 3, and that's a different question. Depends what you want from your electric car. They both look very quirky. I remember the first time I saw a Tesla Model 3, it was like, wow, that's a bit different. And obviously the first time you see one of these in person, it sort of takes your breath away a little bit, because you've never seen anything like this before. But in terms of the way they do things, this looks much more like a traditional car inside. You've got your standard sort of screens in the centre, you've got your buttons down there in the middle for your air conditioning. Whereas on the Tesla, you've just got that one big screen, which I'd imagine would take a little bit of getting used to. But then obviously the Tesla's much more all about the technology about the car, whereas this is more about being a car. So I guess, you know, there's options there. You pay your money, you take your choice. But nowadays there's actually quite a lot of Tesla Model 3s on the road, so they're starting to become a lot more common. So if you want something that stands out a little bit more, then the Hyundai is definitely the better car to go for, because these are going to be so rare on the roads here in Australia that you'll very, very rarely get the opportunity to see one, whereas you see a Tesla virtually every day of the week now. So that's a wrap for the video for the Ioniq 5. I'd love to know your thoughts on what you think of this car. I was really, really impressed with it the week I've just spent with it. Such a nice car to drive, comfortable, luxurious, quick, handles well, got loads of tech, and the value for money at 76,000 plus on road costs, I think it's really good value for money too. If you've got any questions on this car, please leave them in the comments section below for me, and I'll come back to you as soon as I can. If you've enjoyed the video, obviously give it a like. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to find out when the next video goes live. In the meantime, thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next one.